Hello and welcome back. A little dark because I've decided to take you for a walk because one, it's cold, and two, there's a lot of big energy around, so why not walk it out? Just helps get the weight down more. I'm excited. I'm down I think I'm just past 70 pounds now since January, so yay that. Anyways, this is going to be part 4 of how to alchemize and release karmics. And what I was saying in the last video, you really have to have faith in spirit and in your twin and in yourself. And you have to have such a faith. I think a lot of us get bound up because we know what it feels like to go through dark night of the soul energy, especially if you had, even if you just had a one-time connection with them, but if you had that and you had anxious attachment, or if you had years, maybe you had 15, 20 years with them or anything like that, it can be crushing when they go, especially if they ghost you or you have children and they don't help or anything like that. Like, that's painful. It's really painful, and it's so disappointing on so many levels, especially when you know there's so much good in them, and why would they just jump into a karmic third party situation, even amongst your own battles, especially if you could see that both of you had, were bringing in different contrasts. But therein is why, I say, give grace and recognize that it's usually not a personal thing that they're not choosing you or anything. It's usually an immaturity, a lack of experience on some level. And the irony is, actually the good thing is, if they have jumped out into a karmic third party situation, it is I can almost guarantee that they asked for healing. They asked in some way, shape, or form. Either they said, I don't want to feel like I'm hurting my DF anymore, or my DM anymore, or I don't want to feel like I can't trust anybody, or I don't want to feel anxious anymore, or maybe they more actively said, I want to be able to focus, I want to be able to be grateful, I want to be able to be genuine. Look at the words that they use, especially if they're even just colloquially saying, I wish ABC, I wish XYZ. They're calling that in. They may not realize it, but they are. And so if they had a fair amount of immaturities, or they were acting in a narcissistic way, because I don't often feel like there are narcissists out there, but most people, we have levels of narcissism. And if you look it up, you need some amount of narcissism in order to have healthy self-love. But when it gets in excess and you get grandiose, that's when it becomes overt narcissism. And when you don't have enough narcissism in that, well, this is going to be weird to say, when you don't have enough, you end up in victim narcissism, where you're very insecure about everything. You don't trust anybody. You're constantly focused on the ways you've been hurt in the past and trying to look for the patterns of somebody hurting you in the future. And you're constantly in a cycle of attacking and running, like fight and flee, fight and flee, fight and flee. And so, if your twin did something like that to you, maybe they fought with you and then they ran away. Or maybe they ran away and then they fought with you. And it's probably cycles of that. It's more immaturity. It's not about not wanting you or not choosing you. In fact, the higher likelihood is, if you're right and you were very, very loving with them and very genuine with them, and they had not reached a level where they could understand that level of unconditional love, and even more likely if they had a difficult childhood or difficult early relationships where they've not even yet called in the soul pieces that they need, it's not that they weren't choosing you. It's that genuine love scares them. And think about your own past. If you were unprotected by your parents or hurt by parental figures, then when you grow up, you don't trust love, because the very first people that were supposed to love you unconditionally for all your quirks and flaws and keep you protected from everyone else in the world, if they didn't do that, whether they meant to or not, whether they had their own narcissism or not, they didn't do that. And so the higher likelihood is, the more they love you, the more your twin loves you, but how do you put it? The more they love you, but if they've had a lot of injuries from people that they loved, the more likely they are to run from you. And and you could see that in a lot of ways. It's another reason just to get to a place where you can have faith. And that's where you really start to alchemize things. That where the next step in is also having faith in any karmic third parties. And I don't mean faith that they're gonna that they're gonna do in their own relationship, which is a part of it. Like, you have to recognize that if your twin left you, and you guys had an unhealthy relationship, and they didn't take the proper time and space to be alone and deal with their feelings, or even go to counseling or things like that and really face themselves, they didn't go into that new relationship any different than leaving yours. And they're carrying that in there with them, and they have called to them a karmic partner who has many of the same challenges, probably worse in many ways, to reflect them, because they both asked for healing, just like you have asked for healing. And in that happening, there is, like, you can guarantee two toxic people are going to wear through each other a lot faster than, like, say, somebody who is toxic with somebody who is secure. I mean, somebody who's toxic with somebody who's secure is going to, slowly wear down the other person if they don't learn, or they're slowly going to get better. And there's also different levels of toxicity. Like, just because you may not be a loud, possessive sort of person doesn't mean, like, if you don't have good boundaries and you don't speak your truth because you don't want to rock the boat, you're still in a toxic cycle. It's just a different side of it, a different dynamic of it. Either way, you look at it, you have the kind of faith in your twin that nobody else has had in them. And especially if you find yourself compelled to say, no, I need to warn them. I need to be their friend. I need to be there for them. I need to look out for them. I need to protect them. I need to out them. Any of that stuff, you are still in some karmic energy yourself, and you're not having faith in them. And that's probably something they're used to. There's a lot of people telling them what to do, and then not having faith that they're going to do it. And then they get used to that, and they don't do the things that they're supposed to do, or they do the opposite of what they're supposed to do, and it becomes kind of a oppositional defiance disorder type of scenario, to where you suggest they do something that's good for them because they're not in a pattern of doing healthy things, and they intentionally do the opposite of it. And not even intentionally, it's more just, you get so used to authority figures, which we associate as parents in the formative years, who are supposed to love us, being the ones who hurt us. And so then anyone who is genuinely trying to care about you and offer you suggestions to make things easier, then you automatically do the opposite of what they say. Much like, moody teenager testing boundaries. But if we don't get out of those years in a healthy way, and we're not faced with the experiences of showing us that while we may have been victimized when we were younger, we're no longer victims as adults when we choose not to be, and in healthy ways, not in, like, I'm going to have so much armor that nobody can hurt me, or I'm just going to stay in toxic relationships because I know I'll get hurt, or I'm not going to be in any relationships at all. Like, healthy ways, like, okay, I see that I've been triggered in this way, I've been hurt in this way. I'm going to release the resentments of that. I'm going to accept the apologies that I might never get. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to forgive the people who hurt me. And I'm going to feel good in and of myself on my own. And everything else is going to be a cherry on top. Like, when we get to that place, and we've had the experiences to go along with that stuff, then love is not so scary. But until we get there, we often call in karmic situations and karmic partners to help us get to that point. And if you have a twin, who's with the second layer, because remember, I talked earlier, the first layer is like loving soulmates. Those that are actually, it's not that they're necessarily good, but they're not bad, and they do love each other. And that can be hard enough to feel. Like, that can take a hit on your self-worth. Like, oh, they found somebody who loves them and they love them, and does that mean that they're going to be happy forever and ever? Remember, there's still lessons in that. And you don't want to, what kind of person would you be if you were like, oh, they're happy, but I don't like that because it's not me that they're picking, so I don't want them to have that. No. If you have a twin flame who is genuinely happy, and they're not faking it, and they're not being monotone about their emotions and pretending that everything is happy, or telling you in one hand that it's horrible, like this and this and this, and they're explaining abusive cycles, and then when you ask them about it, they're like, no, everything is fine, and you don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, like, if they genuinely have a loving relationship, be happy for them. Be happy for them, because that's probably a reflection that you needed to see. And it could even be, you never know, maybe you were in the DM cycle or the DF cycle of needing to have things reflected to you because you didn't have the maturity level to be able to go, you know what? If when I love a person, I want them to be happy, whether it's with me or not. I want them to be happy. I want them to experience good things. And those should be the things that you pray for your twin and their karmics. Because remember, as I said in the Thank You Karmic series, a lot of times, if you believe you're a twin flame, then if you have your twin in a karmic situationship, it's likely that they are also lined up with another twin flame who needs healing before they can be with their twin. So, don't be in a place where you're not going to alchemize anything. If you're in a place where you're like, oh, I wish all love and light for my DM or DF, but I wish evil on their twin or on their karmic. Like, you're creating resistance. 2, spite is a horrible energy and it brings really bad karma. And 3, just why? Like, why? Why do you need to be there? It's much better to wish that they do have happiness and there is good in there and that they both get what they need from it, in love and lessons and experiences and things like that. And when you can genuinely be in that place, not just speak the words, but actually feel that way, you start to notice the energy alchemizing. But that's the other thing to think about too, is that yes, like if your twin is lined up with somebody who is very unhealthy, has a lot of like anxious attachment challenges or very possessive or things like that, just let them work it out. It's very likely that your twin is being put in that position because they have not stood up for themselves enough in life, and or they've been very deceptive or conflict avoidant, so they've been lined up with a karmic partner who either creates a lot of conflict or challenges them in ways that you wouldn't, or isn't as thoughtful to them about what their needs might be, and it's challenging them to learn to stand up for themselves, likely in a way that you learned with your twin. And therein is the reflection of it too. And when you recognize that, karmics are likely twins too. And even if they're not, there's no reason not to assume that they want healthy relationships too. And if you're wishing ill on them, 1, you're actually keeping them around. And 2, it's just bringing, like, what you send out comes back to you. You might as well wish that they do have abundance, they do find love, that they do have self-love and good physical health and things like that. And you feel better as a person when you are like that with everybody, rather than, like, I don't know, I suppose in some levels it can feel good to be like, oh, I wish horror on this person, they hurt me, or they're lying to my twin, or this and that, or I know that when it ends it's going to be bad, but why? Like, it's just so much better to genuinely feel like the kind of person that's like, I do still have my cycles where sometimes I get upset, and it's kind of like if somebody cuts you off on the road, you could, like, 9 out of 10 times be like, it's not a big deal. And other times you could be like, oh, you fruity cupcake, get out of my way, don't cut me off. You're going to have moments. But practice being in a place to where when you feel triggered, you go, you know what, I recognize that this karmic is my Lady of the Lake challenge. It's the distorted image of myself and old ways that I was, and things that I would do if I didn't feel like a bad person for doing them, and when you get to a place of then appreciating the kinds of interactions they're willing to have with your twin in their immaturities that you're not going to have with them, and that when they are both done with each other, they're both going to have grown in a lot of ways, and they'll take into their next relationships the things that they've learned. You also have to recognize too that even when you alchemize the energy that you're holding on to, and that the karmic that they've been with that's been there because you've been holding on, even when that releases, it doesn't mean they're going to come right to you. It doesn't mean you're ready. It doesn't mean they're ready. And even if you're both ready, it doesn't mean that there aren't other adventures to have. And you got to really be open to any outcome, unless you really want to keep going through a whole bunch of shadow work and keep feeling crushed about it. Which is not a bad thing. There's no bad choices, but, really be open to it and start to look at, once you start to be able to release resentment and holds on karmic energy, the reason for even doing that should not be to change your twin's relationship or get them out of something. It should be so that you can have peace of mind, so that you can glow up and go, you know what, whatever's going on in the 3D, that's fine. Like, they need the lessons, that if it's loving, they need the love. If it's good or bad, they're calling it in so that they can get that healing. And this is opportunity for you to grow yourself in the same way that they are. Like, you reflect each other. You need to go through your own different things. And even if you feel like you've achieved such a level that you don't need to do more work, which is never true. There's always more work to do. We're never done. But even if you feel like you're like way far ahead and stuff, well, then good. Then don't worry about what they're doing and focus on what you would like to do with your time. Maybe there's some activities that, you don't feel like you would do if you had a partner. Or maybe there's things that even when your twin is in their divinity that, they wouldn't want to do with you. Go do those things. And on the other side of that, try to focus on becoming such a consistent person that you're the same way in a relationship as you are outside of a relationship. Because a lot of times when we're in karmic energy, where we screw ourselves is that in the honeymoon phase, in limerence, when we are so in love with each other, we want to be so liked. In fact, it increases if we're insecure or have attachment traumas or fears of abandonment. It increases. Oh yeah, I like that too, or oh, I'm like that too, or oh wow, we share that in common, or wow, look at this history that we have that I don't really have, but look at it, or look at all these synchronicities and things. But then if either one of you has unhealthy cycles, a good healthy honeymoon usually lasts a good, like, at least a year, if not two. But if you look at and learn about attachment traumas and love languages and Enneagram types, you'll see that unhealthy attachments typically burn out very fast. Like, the honeymoon phase might only last a couple of weeks, but because you're desperate, or you're feeling lonely, or you're afraid of something, you start to turn a blind eye even more so than you would if you were in genuine love and in a genuine honeymoon phase. And oftentimes then ego gets in. You don't want people to think that you just jump in and out of relationships, or that you're very promiscuous or whatever things. Or you get, within the first 3 months, you get wrapped up into financial situations. You move in with somebody, you stay the night a whole bunch, you get a house, or you do something, you start planning for a future that really you probably shouldn't even be talking about till you've been together 5 years, but it happens, and it happens a lot. And you don't even realize until you're already waist deep in a circus that you made a lot of bad choices based on being in a very emotional place and trying to avoid your feelings, avoid your fears, and things like that. But the good and the bad of it is that those relationships don't last. And depending on what you need to learn and what your twin needs to learn, time is subjective. Won't last could be a month. It could be a year. It could be 5 years. You don't know. It could even be 15 or 20 years for that matter. Like, won't last just means it won't last because of the energy that the relationship was started in, especially if it was a rebound, and being a karmic learning lesson. You're only supposed to be in it for a short amount of time to learn something, but if you stay in it past the learning lesson, clearly you got more stuff you need to learn too, including standing up for yourself, saying no, things like that. But those relationships are not meant to last. So you being in a place of like waiting but not waiting, like, go explore your life, go have fun, don't be worried about what's going on, because it's not going to last. And however long it's not going to last doesn't matter. You can do so much with yourself in the time between that. And when you stop holding grudges and you accept that any karmic third parties your twin may be with are a reflection of yourself, and any that you might get with are a reflection of them, or sorry, of your twin, that it's all a part of a greater circle or spiral cycle. It's all meant for healing. It's all connected in different ways that most people don't see. Then you can start to turn any sort of animosity or holding or resistance into loving energy and joyful energy, and then it gets alchemized, and then anything that gets thrown at you, whether it's hurtful stuff or trying to get you into drama or trying to get you to drop your boundaries or anything like that, it's easily transmuted into more joyfulness and just embracing the absurd of it. And then you can keep releasing and keep working on things. And the fun thing is, I mean, if you know for sure that the person you believe is your twin, you'll just get more confirmations of that and build more momentum that will show you that they're coming, even if they don't see it at all. And if they're not your twin, then you will be so healed by the time that your twin arrives to you and likely tells you a similar story as the one that you went through, that you will not have resentments or hold on to things from your past relationship, which is what you want either way. Whether you're getting back with the person you think that you are, whether you're having reunion or whether you have new union, you don't want to carry into new relationships old resentments and old baggage from it. Like, a lot of people do that. And I think part of why twin flames are being called up more consistently now is to help heal the world of that sort of situation where we carry so much emotional baggage with us. I just saw 2121 on the timer there. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I know this wasn't exactly one of my more coherent video series, and because of the strangeness of my storage system in my phone and the different timing levels, but I'm just going with it. Stranger things have happened, so let me know if you have more questions. I'm going to do a few more videos in the next couple of days about topics like these, but really get to a place where you're in an attitude of gratitude about everybody. Like, genuinely get there and keep going up. You'll find yourself more amused, actually, that anything you might have thought to have done to hold on or resist the change or create some sort of drama or cut anybody off, it's actually, then you're just going down to their vibration. And when you actually just focus on you and being grateful and knowing you don't know everything, looking for joyful amazement energy and things like that, you actually make people a lot more envious, and a lot more, it's more likely to stir up things in them that help them heal. And because they have to come up in vibration to be able to even challenge you, by the time that they get there, they actually realize that what you were doing feels a lot better, and then they go that way themselves. And whereas anybody who may have been imitating you in the beginning to try to feel different or try to trick your twin or anything like that, they end up doing that again, but in a good way, and they grow and they heal, and you want that. You want that. Don't wish anybody no growth or bad karma or anything like that. That will come back to you. Start to alchemize the energy by genuinely wishing everybody well. And I wish you all well. I'm going to leave this here. Thank you so much for watching and commenting and learning and growing and making this whole world a very beautiful, interesting place. So until next time, goodbye.